So Halloween used to be my favorite holiday. I used to love dressing up and I liked all the dark imagery of it. I used to be all gothic and all that. So I loved horror movies and haunted houses and all that. So when I became a Christian, I was still holding on to those kind of things. But the closer I got to God, the more I studied, the more I started researching, and the more that God revealed to me, just kind of knocked the blinders off with things like movies and games and just a lot of different things. Halloween also came into play, and so I just started looking into origins and what do these things mean. We have these strange traditions we hold to, like, oh, at Christmas time you put up a tree in your house, or Easter you paint eggs, and it's like, where do these things come from? It's pretty. I've always been intrigued by tradition. I've always kind of been anti-tradition because I'm like, why do people do this just because everybody else did it? So fortunately, it's kind of worked in my favor sometimes. But I'll show you where some of these traditions come from. But first, we're going to talk about something called Samhain. So it looks like it's spelled Sam Hain, but it's pronounced Samhain. And this was an ancient pagan holiday, or a holy day. And so when you look at the Encyclopedia Britannica, it says Halloween, alternative titles, All Hallows Eve, and it says related topics, All Saints Day, holiday, Samhain, Jack-o'-lantern, and October. So Samhain is synonymous with Halloween. Even in the encyclopedia, they recognize that this pagan holiday is associated with what we call today as Halloween. Sometimes people call it All Saints Day. I've actually never heard that growing up. I think it's more of a Catholic type celebration of Halloween, where they kind of celebrate the saints of the Bible. But in the article, it goes on to say Halloween had its origins in the festival of Samhain. And it says, during the Samhain festival, the souls of those who had died were believed to return to visit their homes, and those who had died during the year were believed to journey to the other world. So we as Christians, especially Adventist Christians, know and understand that when you die, you're dead. We are dead in our graves until Christ returns and he blows that trumpet, and there's a resurrection. It's very important that we understand that, especially in the last days, because Satan's going to try and deceive the world through spiritualism. It's creeping in many different ways, whether that's new age like yoga and tarot cards and all these things that are actually entering into the church. The church is actually doing things like playing with angel cards and angel boards, which are just tarot cards and Ouija boards. So we see how Satan is already creeping into the church. And to know and understand that you cannot communicate with the dead, to try and do that is called necromancy. And God doesn't want us to do it, not because he doesn't want us to connect with our dead loved ones, if that were possible, but because he knows that this is a demonic deception, that when you try and talk to dead loved ones, you're actually opening yourself up to be deceived by Satan and his demons. And it's a very emotional thing. So many people get sucked into, well, I saw my dad. He came back to visit me. He smelt the same. He looked the same. He told me only things that he could know about me. And it's very hard once you get sucked into that trap of emotion to understand the truth. If somebody comes up and says that when you're seeing that vision of your father, it's actually a demon, that's going to really mess with their minds. That's called cognitive dissonance. And they don't want to hear that. They can't even comprehend that. And so they're going to really push back on that. But this holiday, or this holy day, is all about the dead returning to their homes. This was Samhain. Time magazine, not a Christian magazine. So this isn't just, I'm giving secular sources because any Christian can get out here and just say, oh, it just looks evil. And most people think if it comes from the mouth of a Christian, there's a bias to it. But I'm giving you secular sources. Time magazine says, what is Samhain? Actually can't see what this There's a little thing covering the first sentence. Can somebody read the first highlighted part that's down there?
Sure, but few probably associate these light-hearted fall traditions with their origins in Samhain, a 3-day ancient Celtic pagan festival.
So they're saying Samhain is about this fall tradition, and it was a 3-day pagan festival. And it goes on and it says, well, you see up here, it says, according to historian Nicholas Roger, author of Halloween from Pagan Ritual to Party Night, says Samhain was a time of stock taking and perhaps sacrifice, including probably animal sacrifice, during which pastoral communities prepared to survive the winter. So Samhain was actually, there was actually animal sacrifices taking place on this pagan holiday that we now keep as a fun day of dressing up and getting candy. And, even churches, even though Halloween is so blatantly wicked with skeletons and Dracula and Medusa and all these things that are clearly, obviously evil, churches still try to do it. And they'll say, hey, come to our church. We're having a trunk or treat. And I actually saw a video of a guy who walked up to each car, and these were Christians from the church that had their car out in front of church, and they still had skeletons. They still had jack-o'-lanterns. They still had these scary things, and they're still dressed up as, scary things like skeletons and even, superheroes and all these things. So there's really nothing different except that they were on the property of a church. So you can maybe at least trust where the candy's coming from. But other than that, the ritual, the celebration was being celebrated the same. It continues and says, the spiritual undertones of the Samhain festival also lent themselves to looking to the future. Druids or Celtic priests thought that the presence of otherworldly spirits made it easier to make predictions about the future. So these are pagans, druids, who wanted to know the future. And on this day, it's said that the veil between the living and the dead is the thinnest. I'm not sure where they get that from, probably from demons. But they're saying that for some reason, October 31st is a day that the veil between the living and the dead is the thinnest. And since they want to know the future, they think they can get that information better from otherworldly spirits. So these are, ghouls and ghosts and spirits of the dead and all these things. They're all just demons. Satan has a million different disguises. He is said that he can come as an angel of light. He presented himself as a serpent in the garden. He manifests as dead loved ones, aliens, all these things. He just has a different way of presenting himself because he's going to reach different people with different ways. Some people are going to be more attracted to their dead loved one. Someone else might, an atheist might fall for the alien thing because, they don't believe in anything spiritual, but they believe in visitors from other worlds. So Satan loves to masquerade himself. Another secular source is History Channel. So this is what History Channel has to say about Samhain. It says Samhain is a pagan religious festival originating from an ancient Celtic spiritual tradition. In modern times, Samhain, a word pronounced Samhain, is usually celebrated from October 31st to November 1st to welcome in the harvest and usher in the dark half of the year. Celebrants believed that the barriers between the physical world and the spirit world break down during Samhain, allowing, I don't know why this thing is covering up certain text. Can you read the rest of that, Kendi? Allowing
more interaction between humans and denizens of the other world.
Of the other world. So here's History Channel. They're just giving you facts. They don't have any kind of agenda. I mean, they might have an agenda when it comes to like evolution and things like this, but they're really trying to just present to you, hey, here's the facts, here's the origins, this is what Samhain is. It's a pagan festival. They're not having some kind of Christian leaning bias, and they're telling you that this is the time when people can speak to the dead, speak to other spirits, and this is what happens on Samhain, which is now Halloween. It says the wheel was considered a representation of the sun and used along with prayers. Cattle were sacrificed. So again, we have this sun worship. Everything comes back to sun worship. It says that this wheel was considered representation of the sun, and then they sacrificed cattle to the sun god. Samhain as a mandatory celebration. Oh, let me read what that said. It said, and participants took a flame from the communal bonfire back to their homes and relight the hearth. Early texts present Samhain as a mandatory celebration lasting 3 days and 3 nights, where the community was required to show themselves to local kings or chieftains. Failure to participate was believed something punishment from the gods, usually illness or death.
Mm-hmm.
What was it?
To result in punishment from the gods, usually.
Result in punishment. So this pagan holiday was actually enforced by law of the chieftains and kings. And if you didn't sacrifice to the sun, you could literally be killed for it.
Controversy, page 588, paragraph 1. Ellen White says, through the two great errors, the immortality of the soul and Sunday sacredness, Satan will bring the people under his deceptions.
So Halloween is like a great combination of both those things. And if Christians are celebrating that, they're literally falling into the two great errors. I'm glad you brought that out. That's really good. I'm gonna have to add that